Hey, what up? This is Brad. I wanted to record a video. I thought it was an appropriate day to do this because for the past, how long has it been? I guess the last 18 months, I've been holding some Bitcoin on behalf of my parents in their, as funny as it sounds, in their retirement IRA. It was such a small amount of money that it didn't really matter if they lost it anyways. But obviously, if you know the timeline of events as far as Bitcoin is related, 18 months ago, even if you bought, $1,000 worth like we did, you had a 20x return, so it became a significant amount of money. So what I wanted to talk about is why, I feel like I've been getting a lot more questions lately, just from friends who know that I am kind of interested in that space, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, whatever. A lot more questions regarding, should I buy it? Like, is it too, I heard it crash. Like, is it a good time to buy it right now? And in regards to Bitcoin, I guess to sum it up, I would recommend it's probably not a good time to buy Bitcoin right now. And not that Bitcoin couldn't necessarily go higher, it could, but the outsized move is likely behind us. Now, why is that? So what you got to realize is Bitcoin in all likelihood is not the future of currency. Like, in 20 years, we're probably not going to remember what Bitcoin even was. It's going to be like what Atari is to game systems. Like, everybody kind of knows what Atari is and they've kind of recreated their brand, but they're not like the shit. Xbox is the shit. So, or PlayStation 4, whatever. I'm not taking sides on, I know there are some video game nerds who will tear my head off for that statement. Anyways, Bitcoin is the first of what will be many, many manifestations of cryptocurrency. In fact, the technology that Bitcoin operates on and takes advantage of is called blockchain. Blockchain is not even necessarily the final form of cryptocurrency. And what I mean by that is there are other technologies. One big one that you should look up today, I would highly encourage you to get extremely informed on, is Hashgraph. Hashgraph is actually a protocol. It's not necessarily, you can't buy Hashgraph. It's an operating system that's currently being commercialized by the company Swirlds. They haven't built a currency on top of it, but there's been a lot of chatter and some innuendos from their COO and CEO that a currency is coming. So I would definitely look out for that. Now, in general, why is it a worthwhile endeavor to educate yourself on cryptocurrency and maybe consider making a very speculative, I would not put a lot of money into this. I didn't advise my parents to. A little bit can go a long way here. This is not, you don't necessarily want to bet the farm on this. However, the intrigue of cryptocurrencies is that for the last 200 or so years, there haven't been any major shakeups of the currency world that have occurred over the span of, less than 20 to 30 years. Like, for example, people debate whether, what decade the pound sterling, stopped being the reserve currency of the world and when the dollar started. Like, these things they're debated in decades. What cryptocurrency could potentially do, now I'm not saying this is going to happen even in the next 2 decades, 3 decades out, maybe, even maybe 2, but I don't want to put a number on it necessarily because I don't know. But the change can happen so quickly because cryptocurrency is so readily available, and unless a government outlaws it, there's just nothing to stop. The only thing stopping consumer use at scale of cryptocurrency is consumers themselves. Like, once it hits a tipping point, then it just goes. And once more people accept cryptocurrency than not, and once, it ousts so many middlemen and makes things so much more simple and convenient, and reduces transaction fees. Bank wires are simpler. You don't have to pay like I'm running a small business with my parents right now. We have to charge a 2.7% transaction fee whenever we take credit card. Goes away if you're using cryptocurrency. Like little, things, things like that. And it's not just credit card, by the way. That's on any electronic transaction. So that all goes away if you use cryptocurrency. It becomes like a cent to make a payment. It's like a ridiculously low amount of money to exchange the cryptocurrency. So I guess the punchline here is that money, there aren't often changes in monetary regimes, and when there are changes, they tend to occur over 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50-year periods. And for the potential to one of those monetary shifts, and the implications of those are always massive, but they're spread out over such a long timeline that you don't feel them as you don't feel them viscerally. So, currencies are such big markets, they tend to move in slow, long patterns. The difference here is if consumers all of a sudden change their behavior in a matter of, even if it only takes 5 years, even like a 5-year change, the amount of capital that will flow into these cryptocurrencies could be crazy. That's why Bitcoin has gone from 2,000 to 20,000 over the course of, what has it been, 5 months? Like maybe even, actually it might even be 3 months. And the reason, and people are getting blown out of the water by that, I personally am 0% surprised. We sold ours because of just, I mean, I had to lock in gains at some point, and a 20x return is pretty good. And that's just me. I honestly don't even, I will probably feel stupid in 2 weeks when, we've doubled again. Whatever, it's all good. The point is, you have to realize the magnitude of how much money there is in the world. I think the number is around 30 trillion if you account for all currencies and gold that's in circulation in the world. And if cryptocurrency even takes 1% of that, that's 2 trillion. If one cryptocurrency gets 1% of it, it's $2 trillion. And you take that value, say it's 2 trillion US dollars that flow into a currency. You take that top value, and your denominator is the number of cryptocurrency units. So like Bitcoin, for example, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. So if you take 2 trillion and divide it by, call it 20 million for the sake of easy, quick maths, I think you're still looking at 100,000 per Bitcoin. And that's 1% of world currency. So the important thing to understand is that while people may talk about the top line numbers of, Bitcoin, $20,000, it's worth nothing. Whether it's worth nothing or not is debatable. I'm not wearing it, but just an example. What is a Gucci t-shirt worth? Is it worth $700? Some people say yes, other people say no. Value, and whether you listen to a pundit as to whether or not something is worth something, take it with a grain of salt. There are usually agendas, not necessarily bad agenda. They're not necessarily bad actors, and they don't necessarily have bad agendas. But there's usually an agenda attached to someone establishing a value to something. I know there is when I do it. Usually, I'm trying to sell something. So keep that in mind. And really, again, the point I just want to hammer home here is that the reason it's a good idea to learn about cryptocurrency is there is a lot of money, just straight up like M2, circulating in the world, if you want to get technical. And no matter how big, even if you're dividing that top line number of trillions, even if you're dividing by millions of currency units, that math still comes out to be pretty big when you could initially buy it for, $1. Like, for Bitcoin to be worth 20 grand is not ridiculous. It could easily be worth 100 grand. And all it would take was 1%, like 1% of world currency. It's the first one. It's getting a lot of flack because it's new. I would really encourage you to not be a headline reader when it comes to the issue of cryptocurrency. It's where the world's going. You know, there's really just no debating that. Like it's headed there. Whether the government tries to interfere or not, you know, that's a subject for a different video. I have my own thoughts on that. Some people think that governments will outlaw cryptocurrencies. We'll see. But I hope that encourages you to do your own research. Don't just take my word for it. Look at the math behind currency and cryptocurrencies and what valuations could potentially be and what it would take for valuations to get crazy. It doesn't take much. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. So learn about cryptocurrency and Hashgraph. Remember, I said Hashgraph first. Remember that, it came from me. Have a good one.